Please like, share, and subscribe this video to support.
2 U.S. Code Chapter 28, Architect of the Capitol. 2 U.S. Code Subchapter 4, Appropriations and Expenditures. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1861. Appropriations under control of Architect of the Capitol. Appropriations under the control of the Architect of the Capitol shall be available for expenses of advertising and personal and other services. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1862, Transfer of Funds. During fiscal year 1997 and fiscal years thereafter, amounts appropriated to the Architect of the Capitol, including amounts relating to the Botanic Garden, may be transferred among accounts available to the Architect of the Capitol upon the approval of 1. The Committee on Appropriations of the House of Representatives, in the case of amounts transferred from the Appropriation for Capitol Buildings and Grounds under the heading House Office Buildings. 2. The Committee on Appropriations of the Senate, in the case of amounts transferred from the Appropriation for Capitol Buildings and Grounds under the heading Senate Office Buildings, and 3. The Committees on Appropriations of the Senate and the House of Representatives, in the case of amounts transferred from any other appropriation. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1862a. Use of construction project funds to reimburse Capitol Police for related overtime costs. A. Payment of overtime costs. The Architect of the Capitol shall transfer amounts made available for construction projects during a fiscal year to the applicable appropriations accounts of the United States Capitol Police in order to reimburse the Capitol Police for overtime costs incurred in connection with such projects. B. Effective date. This section shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2013 and each succeeding fiscal year. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1862b. Transfer of amounts appropriated for Architect of the Capitol under House Office Buildings. A. During fiscal year 2019 and each succeeding fiscal year, amounts appropriated or otherwise made available for the Architect of the Capitol under the heading House Office Buildings may be transferred to the House of Representatives and merged with and made available under the heading Allowances and Expenses, subject to the approval of the Committee on Appropriations of the House of Representatives. B. The period of availability of any amounts transferred to the House of Representatives under this section shall be the same period of availability applicable to such amounts as appropriated for the Architect of the Capitol. C. The aggregate amount transferred under this section in any fiscal year may not exceed $30 million. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1863, Funds out of Contingent Expenses, Architect of the Capitol Appropriation. Any expenditures required to implement the provisions of Section 1818 of this title shall be paid from the Appropriation, Contingent Expenses, Architect of the Capitol, and any funds appropriated under this head shall hereafter be available for such purpose. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1864, Funds out of Capitol Buildings, Architect of the Capitol Appropriation. On and after October 18, 1986, the Architect of the Capitol may incur expenses authorized by Section 1818 of this title to be paid from the Appropriation, Capitol Buildings, Architect of the Capitol. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1865, Capitol Police Buildings and Grounds Account. A. Establishment. There is hereby established in the Treasury of the United States an account for the Architect of the Capitol to be known as Capitol Police Buildings and Grounds, hereinafter in this section referred to as the account. B. Use of funds. Funds in the account shall be used by the Architect of the Capitol for all necessary expenses for 1. Resilience and security programs of the Architect of the Capitol, and 2. The maintenance, care, and operation of buildings, grounds, and security enhancements for facilities of the United States Capitol Police and for other facilities associated with such resilience and security programs at any location. C. Approval of transfers of appropriations from legislative branch agencies. 1. For carrying out the purposes of the account, the Architect of the Capitol may receive transfers of appropriations from any agency of the legislative branch upon the approval of A. The Committee on Appropriations of the House of Representatives, in the case of a transfer from an office of the House of Representatives. B. The Committee on Appropriations of the Senate, in the case of a transfer from an office of the Senate. Or C. The Committees on Appropriations of the House of Representatives and the Senate, in the case of a transfer from any other office of the government. 2. Amounts transferred under this subsection shall be merged with the account and made available under this section. 3. This subsection shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2019 and each succeeding fiscal year. D. Effective date. Transfer of funds. This section shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2002 and each succeeding fiscal year. Any amounts provided to the Architect of the Capitol prior to August 2, 2002, for the maintenance, care, and operation of buildings of the United States Capitol Police during fiscal year 2002 shall be transferred to the account. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1866, Certification of Vouchers. It shall not be a duty of the Architect of the Capitol to certify any payroll or other voucher covering any expenditure from any appropriation for the Senate Office Building, or for any other building or activity, unless the obligation involved was incurred by him or under his direction. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1867, Advancement and reimbursement of expenses for flying American flags and providing certification services therefor. On and after November 19, 1995, expenses, based on full cost recovery, for flying American flags and providing certification services therefor shall be advanced or reimbursed upon request of the Architect of the Capitol. An amount so received shall be deposited into the Treasury. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1868, Semiannual Compilation and Report of Expenditures. 1. Commencing with the semiannual period beginning January 1, 1965, and for each semiannual period thereafter, the Architect of the Capitol shall compile and, not later than 60 days following the close of the semiannual period, submit to the Senate and the House of Representatives a report of all expenditures made from monies appropriated to the Architect of the Capitol, based on payrolls and other vouchers transmitted during such period to the Treasury Department for disbursement. Such report to include 1. The name, title, and gross salary payment to each employee. 2. A list of government contributions to retirement, health, insurance, and other similar funds. And 3. Name of payee, brief description of service rendered or items furnished under contract, purchase order, or other agreement. Such report shall be printed as a Senate document. 2. The report by the Architect of the Capitol under paragraph 1. For the semi-annual period beginning on January 1st, 1976, shall include the period beginning on July 1st, 1976, and ending on September 30th, 1976, and such semi-annual period shall be treated as closing on September 30th, 1976. Thereafter, the report by the architect of the capital under paragraph 1 shall be for the semi-annual periods beginning on October 1st and ending on March 31st, and beginning on April 1st and ending on September 30th of each year. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1868A, semi-annual report of disbursements. A. Reports required. Not later than 60 days after the last day of each semi-annual period, the architect of the capital shall submit to Congress, with respect to that period, a detailed, itemized report of the disbursements for the operations of the office of the architect of the capital. B. Contents. The report required by subsection A shall include 1. The name of each person who receives a payment from the office of the architect of the capital. 2. The quantity and price of any item furnished to the office of the architect of the capital. 3. A description of any service rendered to the office of the architect of the capital, together with a statement of the time required for the service, and the name, title, and amount paid to each person who renders the service. 4. A statement of all amounts appropriated to, or received or expended by, the office of the architect of the capital and any unexpended balances of such amounts. 5. The information submitted to the Comptroller General under Section 3523(b) of Title 31, and 6. Such additional information as may be required by regulation of the Committee on House Administration of the House of Representatives or the Committee on Rules and Administration of the Senate. C. Printing. Each report under this section shall be printed as a House document. D. Effective date. This section shall apply with respect to the semi-annual periods of January 1st through June 30th and July 1st through December 31st of each year, beginning with the semi-annual period in which this section is enacted. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1869, advance payments. During fiscal year 2008 and each succeeding fiscal year, following notification of the Committees on Appropriations of the House of Representatives and the Senate, the architect of the capital may make payments in advance for obligations of the office of the architect of the capital for subscription services if the architect determines it to be more prompt, efficient, or economical to do so. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1870, House Historic Buildings Revitalization Trust Fund. A. Establishment. There is hereby established in the Treasury of the United States, as an account for the architect of the capital, the House Historic Buildings Revitalization Trust Fund, hereafter in this section referred to as the Fund. B. Use of amounts. Amounts in the fund shall be used by the architect of the capital for the revitalization of the major historical buildings and assets of the House of Representatives which the architect is responsible for maintaining and preserving, except that the architect may not obligate any amounts in the fund without the approval of the Committee on Appropriations of the House of Representatives. C. Continuing availability of funds. Any amounts transferred to and merged with, or otherwise deposited into, the fund shall remain available until expended. D. Omitted. E. Effective date. This section and the amendment made by this section shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2010 and each succeeding fiscal year. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1871. Expired appropriations available for deposit into Employees' Compensation Fund. A. In general, notwithstanding Section 1101, available balances of expired architect of the capital appropriations shall be available to the architect of the capital to make the deposit to the credit of the Employees' Compensation Fund required by Section 8147(b) of Title 5. B. Effective date. This section shall apply with respect to appropriations for fiscal year 2013 and each year thereafter. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1872. Use of expired funds for unemployment compensation payments. A. Available balances of expired architect of the capital appropriations shall be available to the architect of the capital for reimbursing the Federal Employees Compensation Account, as established by Section 1109 of Title 42, for any amounts paid with respect to unemployment compensation payments for former employees of the architect of the capital, notwithstanding any other provision of law, without regard to the fiscal year for which the obligation to make such payments is incurred. B. This section shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2017 and each succeeding fiscal year. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1873. Acceptance of travel expenses from non-federal sources. A. Permitting acceptance of expenses. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, the architect of the capital may accept payment or authorize an employee of the office of the architect of the capital to accept payment on the office's behalf from non-federal sources for travel, subsistence, and related expenses with respect to attendance of the employee or the spouse of such employee at any meeting or similar function relating to the employee's official duties. Any cash payment so accepted shall be credited to the appropriation applicable to such expenses. In the case of a payment in kind so accepted, a pro rata reduction shall be made in any entitlement of the employee to payment from the government for such expenses. B. Prohibiting acceptance from other sources. Except as provided in this section or Section 7342 of Title 5, the office or an employee of the office may not accept payment for expenses referred to in subsection A. An employee who accepts any payment in violation of the preceding sentence 1. May be required, in addition to any penalty provided by law, to repay, for deposit in the general fund of the Treasury, an amount equal to the amount of the payment so accepted, and 2. In the case of a repayment under paragraph 1, shall not be entitled to any payment from the government for such expenses. C. Effective date. This section shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2019 and each succeeding fiscal year. 2 U.S. Code Subchapter 5. Capital Flown Flags for Families of Fallen Heroes. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 1881. Definitions. In this subchapter, 1. The term capital flown flag means a flag of the United States flown over the Capitol in honor of the deceased individual for whom the flag is requested. 2. The terms chaplain, firefighter, law enforcement officer, member of a rescue squad or ambulance crew, and public agency have the meanings given such terms in Section 10284 of Title 34. 3. The term immediate family member, with respect to an individual means A. The spouse, parent, brother, sister, or child of the individual or a person to whom the individual stands in loco parentis, or b. any other person related to the individual by blood or marriage. 4. The term public safety officer means an individual serving a public agency in an official capacity with or without compensation as a law enforcement officer, as a firefighter, or as a chaplain. And 5. The term representative includes a delegate or resident commissioner to the Congress. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1881A, providing capital flown flags for families of fallen heroes. A. In general, at the request of an immediate family member of a firefighter, law enforcement officer, member of a rescue squad or ambulance crew, or public safety officer who died in the line of duty, the representative or senator of the family may provide to the family a capital flown flag, together with the certificate described in subsection C. B. No cost to family. A capital flown flag provided under this section shall be provided at no cost to the family. C. Certificate. The certificate described in this subsection is a certificate which is signed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the representative, or the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Senator, providing the capital flown flag, as applicable, and which contains an expression of sympathy for the family involved from the House of Representatives or the Senate, as applicable. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1881B, Regulations and Procedures. A. In general, not later than 30 days after May 16, 2016, the architect of the Capitol shall issue regulations for carrying out this subchapter, including regulations to establish procedures, including any appropriate forms, guidelines, and accompanying certificates, for requesting a capital flown flag. B. Review. The regulations issued under subsection A shall take effect upon approval by the Committee on House Administration of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Rules and Administration of the Senate. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1881C. Authorization of Appropriations. There are authorized to be appropriated for each of fiscal years 2017 through 2028 such sums as may be necessary to carry out this subchapter, to be derived from amounts appropriated in each such fiscal year for the operation of the architect of the Capitol, except that the aggregate amount appropriated to carry out this subchapter for all such fiscal years may not exceed $40,000. 2 U.S. Code paragraph 1881D, effective date. This subchapter shall take effect on May 16, 2016, except that a capital flown flag may not be provided under Section 1881A of this title until the regulations issued under Section 1881B, A, of this title take effect in accordance with Section 1881B, B, of this title.